Translation, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The she-goat went to the residence of a Brahman, who was the maintainer of another she-goat. And that Brahman angrily cut off the he-goat's dangling testicles. But at the he-goat's request, the Brahmana later rejoined them by the power of mystic yoga. Purport. Here Sukracharya is figuratively described as the husband of another she-goat. This indicates that the relationship between husband and wife in any society, whether higher or lower than human society, is nothing but the same relationship between the he-goat and she-goat. For material relationship between men and women is one of sex. Yan maitunadi griyamedi sukham hitucham. Sukracharya was an acharya or expert in family affairs, which involved the transfer of semen from the he-goat to she-goat. The words Kashid Ajaswami expressly indicates herein that Sukracharya was no better than Yayati, for both of them were interested in family affairs generated by Sukra or semen. Sukracharya first cursed Yayati to become old so that he could no longer indulge in sex. But when Sukracharya saw that King Yayati's emasculation would make his own daughter a victim of punishment, he used his mystic power to restore Yayati's masculinity. Because he used his power of mystic yoga for family affairs and not to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this exercise in magic yoga was no better than the affairs of the he-goat and she-goats. Yogic power should properly be used to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Lord Himself recommends in Bhagavad Gita. Anyone know the verse? Yoginam api sarvesham maganten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. And a purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Umlitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangalam gayati grim. Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastha Bhutale Shrimati Tamala Krishna Goswami Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastha Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Sarasati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srinavati Paskarade Satarine Vanchakalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. So this is very instructing figurative story. You could say it's a myth. A story, a myth actually, mythology. Myth means something fictitious. But actually in the English vocabulary, it's surprisingly, my wife corrected me once, mythology means actually reality. It's not fairy tale, but it's a story that depicts another story which is real. So here, King Yayati, it's narrating this story. It's not an allegorical story, but Prabhupada used the words figurative story. It's a myth, but it's based on reality, based on his own life. The only thing that changes are the actors. Rather than being a human being, husband and wife, it's the he got and the she got. As we all know, the story began with when Devayani and Sharmista, with all their friends, they were bathing in this lake. And then Lord Shiva and Parvati, they passed through. And as usual, Lord Shiva has Parvati on his lap. And then immediately all the girls, they covered their body. And the only one left out without any clothes was Devayani. It was Sarmishta that took away the clothes of Devayani. This was the story before Devayani was married to King Yayati. It's interesting that in order to preserve her own reputation, Sharmista very selfishly took the clothes of Devayani, covered herself up, and then only that, she pushed Devayani in a well. Then later on, King Yayati, who was not yet married, he saw this beautiful girl in a well, and he felt very much compassionate. He felt like chivalrous, how do you say, with the chivalry, and he felt very proud of his being a hero. The hero, they usually like to save children and save women, and so he started to dig up under the well, and he made the tunnel for her to come out. And then they got married. But the story didn't finish there. Once they got married, King Yayati, he had an affair later on with Sarmista. Sarmista is the one who threw Devayani in the well, and he made her pregnant, as is explained in the Bhagavatam. And Devayani became very angry, really toxic with anger. So she went to her father, Sukracharya, and complaining about, the unfaithful behavior of this, the husband. So, and in this way, Sukracharya cursed King Yayati to lose his youth. But in the figurative story here, it says that the the house of the Brahmana, which is Sukracharya, the he-goat Brahman, he cut off the testicles of the he-goat, of the son-in-law. But this cutting off the testicles so that he could not have any more sex, it meant, that Sukracharya took away the youth from King Yayati so that he could not enjoy his life anymore, or sex pleasure. So being very morose, Sukracharya, the King Yayati, and the wife also, she wanted to have children. She said to the father, let's forgive him and please grant him with a boon. So the boon was that whoever will give him the youth, he can exchange his old age with the youth, with anyone. So already they had 5 children, and the youngest one was Puru. When the King Yayati asked all of his kids who would give him the youth, not one of them was in agreement, in the mood of service to give the youth to the father, except the younger one. The younger one immediately, without any reservation, he gave the youth to his father, and he accepted voluntarily the old age. But here we could see that even though he received the youth from his son, 1,000 years passed and engaged in sense gratification, but he could not be satisfied. Because the Bhagavad Gita says, Dusparena Nalinacha, that the senses, they can never become satisfied. No matter how much gratification you give to them, they are very ungrateful children. And it's very difficult, not only that, you cannot be satisfied, but at the same time you're frustrated, but you cannot give up, this desire that leads you to sense gratification, which is a lasting desire. One time, when I was brahmachari, I asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj a question. I said, what is the greatest austerity for anyone, for a human being? And he said, the greatest austerity is to give up sex life. That's what Tamal Krishna Maharaj said. And it's the truth. It's not that the greatest austerity is to, any other types of renunciation or live in the forest or practicing bodily, yoga, whatever, you go through, tapasya. The greatest austerity is to give up this pleasure. It's a very difficult thing for a human being to do. So therefore, and why we cannot give it up? Because, as we read this morning, the very nice passage this morning that Radha Govinda read, that God is good, the living entities are good, but when they come in contact with this material energy, then we become bad. So Krishna says, is that correct? That's what I read this morning. Krishna says in the Gita, Dhyayato vishayam pumsha sangasti supajayate. It's the lasting desire, sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodo bijayate. This lusty desire, how it comes about? By association of contemplation, the sense, with the sense object. Even in the description of King Puranjan, you know the story, the allegoric story. It all started with the eyes. Kadyota Avirmukhi. The soul, Puranjan, comes up into these two northern gates, and he tried to enjoy, through the eyes, what he tries to enjoy, the darshana rupi is called. The darshan means, when you want to have a vision, contemplate. Rupi means variety of forms. So Kadyotana Virmukhi, the soul comes out of the eyes, and he says also with the help of Dyumna, with the help of the sun, because Dyumna is the sunlight. Without light, you cannot see. You cannot enjoy the variety of forms. So, and while contemplating the object of the senses, that's how we become attached to them. And that's when lust, then this lust, kamat krodo abhijaya, lust, anger, greed, they're born. And very difficult, to become free of them. So, later on, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I was reading a little bit, flipping through yesterday, he mentions the secret of giving up lusty desire. Does anybody know? The secret. It's very interesting. Very simple formula. You know, Hariguru? How to give up, how to become free from lusty desire. Cold shower. That helps. It's very interesting. Do you want to know what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says? There it is. Very interesting, and there is a lot of truth in this. There is a purport on the text 15, which we will come to it in a few days. But at the end of the purport says, as explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when one is not envious even of his enemy, does not expect honor from anyone, but instead desires all well-being, even for his enemy, he is understood to be a Paramahamsa, one who has fully subdued the lusty desires for sense gratification. So, to become friendly to all, there is a verse, isn't it, in the Gita, Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma Vijidatma Vijitatma Jidendriya Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma Kurvanapi Nalipyate. One who controls his mind and the senses, the master of his mind and the senses, and he acts always with a devotion, then he becomes very dear to everyone, and everyone becomes very dear to him. So controlling the mind means not just controlling the mind so that the mind becomes friendly to ourselves, but we have to extend the mind to become friendly also towards other relationships. And here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says especially the enemy. If you meditate on this, very difficult thing to do, to try to love and like someone who is inimical towards you. But because we are not capable of doing that, so therefore we cannot get rid of lusty desire. It's very scientific. When one surrenders to Krishna, then one becomes a Goswami or a Paramahamsa. Like the 6 Goswami, they were very friendly and merciful to the ruffians, it says, isn't it? Ruffians and also the devotees. Not just friendly to the devotees. So therefore, even though there are people who don't like the devotees, who don't like Krishna, the best way that we can look after them is to go out and preach to them, give them something, some prasadam, or a book about Krishna. And that's how we show some consideration and some friendship towards them. Of course, there is also that, a Madhyamadikari is supposed to avoid the enemy and be merciful to the innocent, the ignorant. So that's what we do. But avoiding the enemy doesn't mean, we become inimical towards them. There is a way, like Srila Prabhupada, he couldn't preach to those type of people, but he would give them some prasadam, or he would give them some kind words and dismiss them, not taking their association. But give whatever you can. Give a nice smile, even if there is no. That's preaching. There is a way how to deal kindly with everybody. Not just with the favorable people. So that's the way, the secret that one can achieve the objective of becoming free from lusty desire. So the message that King Yayati is giving to Devayani is that, we've been enjoying for 1,000 years and we were incapable of becoming free from this desire, this lusty desire. So what to do? So he narrated this nice story, very simple story of the he goat and the she goat. And by narrating this story, Devayani became purified. And by hearing about this story, usually people, they don't like to hear about animals, the activities of the animals. But this one is very particular. It's a divine story. If you see at the end of the chapter, anyone who hears this story becomes free, achieves liberation. Devayani became free also from sense gratification, desire. And both of them, even though they engaged for 1,000 years in sense gratification, but still it was like trying to make a hole in the water. It will never happen. Satisfying the senses with sense gratification, it's impossible. If someone says there is happiness in this world, then don't believe that person. He's trying to sell you something. He's an agent of Kali. There is no happiness. What is happiness? If you think properly, it's that space between two suffering. People, they work very hard, they suffer. And then when they have a little break, they want to go on holiday. I met someone on Sankirtan a few days ago. They went on holiday, hard-working family. And then in holiday she got sick, and then she found out that she had a cancer. Only 1 month to live. 1 month, 1.5 months. I felt so sorry. So where is the break? Look at what happened in Tunisia. People, they go on holiday with a hoping that there will be some Jews. Prahlad Maharaj says there will be some pleasure. But unfortunately, they found death. So sad. So death can come at any moment to anybody, no matter how healthy you are. I remember Kurmarupa Prabhu was very healthy. But look at that, he's only 60 years old. How old was he? 60 something? 62, 60. Young man. Cancer. So death comes at any times, and we have to be prepared. There is no pleasure to be found in this world. Just like Saint Augustine, people, there are a lot of devotees, they're a bit lazy in terms of self-realization. They come in front of Krishna, including myself, and we pray, my dear Lord, everything's going fine at the moment. I'll promise you one day in the future I will surrender completely to you, but not yet. That's the internal confidential prayer that every one of us probably have in our heart. We don't want to share it, but I'm sharing it, in the class today. Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai. Otherwise we would be a pure devotees, all of us. No more struggle. The reason we are not pure devotees, we are not completely surrendered to the Lord, because we are still attached to the pleasure, hoping, that there is some pleasure, some sense gratification. So Saint Augustine was like that, he became old, and then he repented, just like King Yayati. That's how he became a saint. If you want to know who is Saint Augustine, in the Catholic Church, he's celebrated for being, he was actually, like Saint Francis, was from a very wealthy family, was womanizer, he was enjoying his senses in full gusto, but at the same time he believed in God. And his prayer towards God was, one day I will surrender to you, but not yet. But then at the end of his life, he regretted. And he was preaching to all the young people, don't make the same mistake I made. So King Yayati is doing the same thing, yeah. And also telling his children, don't make the same mistake I made. So he achieved a self-realization just by the regret after 1,000 years. Of course, Krishna is very merciful. You want to enjoy? Akama sarvakama moksha kama udarati. He doesn't say akama moksha kama udarati. No, he includes also sarvakama. Even if you are full of material desires and you want to enjoy, please do enjoy. But think of me. Don't forget me. And that's what King Yayati did. Krishna is very liberal. He knows this bhava for sense gratification is in the heart of every person in this material world. And he gives a chance for us to experience the so-called happiness. It's not that he takes it away. Only if we surrender to him and we pray very, very strongly, and we are frustrated with this material life, then he will take it away. The spirit, the desire to enjoy. Not the enjoyment, but the desire to enjoy. Because there is no enjoyment. So, King Yayati, so it's better later than never. He achieved self-realization after 1,000 years. And the secret was actually that he had no grudge. Again, he didn't see Sukracharya as an enemy. He didn't hold any grudge towards his older kids because they didn't give him the youth. Like, he's from the dynasty of Jamadagni, who was the father of Parashuram. He held a grudge against these rebellious kids who didn't obey his order, and he had them killed by Parashuram. But Prabhupada says, as a reaction, Jamadagni, he got killed by the sons of Kartavirya Arjuna. So there is a reaction, no matter who we are, there is a reaction for every time we hold a grudge towards somebody. So it's better to not cultivate enemies. Like in this world, in this life, very dangerous. Who was the husband of Devaki? Vasudev. He prayed to Kamsa to please, don't kill my wife. My sister. Because the Lord, don't see her as your enemy. The Lord, at the end of your life, the Lord, you want to see how many friends and how many enemies you have developed in your life. If the amount of enemy is higher, then you go to hell. So we have to make sure that we, as a devotees, we hold no grudge towards anybody. And that's what King Yayati did. He had no grudge towards his children, who refused to give him the youth, the older ones. But instead, he went to the forest and he gave them he had 5 children, the four old ones, he gave them the south, the north, the east and the west. He made them in charge of the 4 directions. And he gave all the wealth and everything. But then the younger one, who obeyed his instructions, Puru, King Yayati gave back his youth. And he took back the old age again from him. You will read it at the end of the chapter. And not only that, because he obeyed his father, he installed him as the Chakravarti, in charge of all the 4 directions. North, south, west, and east. And he put all the 4 older kids, brothers, under him to obey his instructions. So that's the thing, he was very grateful to Puru. Puru was the youngest one and he got it all. For what? Because he gave, without any reservation, he gave everything he had to his father. Srila Prabhupada in the previous purport, he explained again for the same reason, because the 4 older sons, they were already reached beyond the age of puberty, so therefore they were already lusty and attached to sense gratification. And therefore they could not forsake their youth, to give their youth to their father. But Puru, he was a child, the youngest one, and he had no lusty desire. So he said, I've got this youth, what am I going to do with it? I don't have desire to enjoy anyway. So give me your old age and take my youth. That's why Jesus said, one has to be pure like a child to enter the kingdom of God. That means, without any lusty desire. Lusty desire doesn't just mean, for the opposite sex, but to be attached to the mood of enjoyment. So King Yayati, he was very fortunate to do that, and he's celebrated in the Bhagavatam for being one of the greatest personality. Why was he very famous? Does anybody know? Why he became very famous? Why is he famous? Not because of his 1,000 years of sense gratification, obviously. Not only that, what did he do? No, not only that, but later on, something happened later on. No. Because Krishna appeared in his dynasty. He had one of his sons, it was called Yadu, the Yadu dynasty. That's why from the 9th canto, very soon we're going to the 10th canto, which comes into the Krishna dynasty. Krishna was so pleased with him that he gave him a son, that Yadu was the 3rd son, and he became the sacred dynasty that produced the progeny of Krishna and Balaram. So Prabhupada says, in the next few chapters, that King Yayati, he didn't do anything spectacular, but because he was always thinking of God, even during the years of his sense gratification. And at the time when he reached his old age, he gave up everything, because he fully realized that there is nothing. I tried and tried and tried for 1,000 years, but there is nothing to be found. So therefore, he meditated on Krishna, he was remembering Krishna, Vasudeva. He says that actually if you read this chapter at the end, you will see that he adopted the Smaranam. He perfected the Smaranam, him and his wife. And in this way achieved the liberation. So Krishna, as soon as you surrender as soon as you think of Krishna, even right now, you don't have to wait, when you become old. Right now, while you are hearing, this pastime, just think of Krishna. Like Radhanath Maharaj always says, that he quotes that verse every time he gives initiations. Yat Pundarikaksha, the Om Pavitram. Yeah, just by thinking of the lotus eyes. Well, how does he start the verse? That's the one. Beautiful. This is actually wish I should learn this verse. Well, I learned many years ago, but then I forgot. It's something for everyone to learn, because it says it all, that everything else is a formality. Even the knowledge that we get from the Bhagavatam, the initiation we get, it's all formality. Even sometimes the chanting, believe it or not, Radhanath Maharaj was mentioning, even chanting Hare Krishna. It could be mechanical. What's the point of chanting Hare Krishna if you don't think of Krishna? But if it's someone, no matter how dirty he is, how much sense gratification he's had behind in his life, like King Yayati, immediately, if you think of Krishna, of the lotus eye Lord, Pundarikaksha, that Supreme Personality of Godhead who's got a beautiful eyes, as soon as you think of him, even for a fraction of a second, you become purified from everything. It's not an exaggeration. It's the truth, and that's what happened to King Yayati. He perfected. If you read at the end of this chapter, he perfected the Smaranam. He gave up everything and he said, "My dear Lord," actually I'd like to read it to you. It's very nice. It's at the end of the chapter. It's very beautiful. is quoting the verse of Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. And then we close the class. O Lord Vasudeva, Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation. You live as the Supersoul in everyone's heart and are smaller than the smallest, yet you are greater than the greatest and are all-pervading. You appear completely silent, having nothing to do, but this is due to your all-pervading nature and your fullness in all opulences. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And purport is how Devayani became self-realized by the grace of her great husband, Maharaj Yayati, is described here. Describing such realization is another way of performing the bhakti process. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship, offering praise to the Lord, becoming His servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto Him. These 9 processes are accepted as a pure devotional service. So the Smaranam, even one of them, you could see, they adopted one of them, and they both achieved the liberation. So on that note, I hope and pray that myself and all of you will do the same. Not in 1,000 years, but soon, very soon. And we will always think of Krishna and never forget Krishna. That is the motto. That is actually, it's even more important, that the 4 regulative principles is even more important than whatever we do in devotional service, daily worship, or even more important than chanting Hare Krishna. To think of Krishna. As soon as we think of it, then everything else comes. The chanting comes, the service comes. Thinking of Krishna is very powerful. And there is reality here. It was realized by King Yayati, and it can be realized by us also. Thank you very much. We'll stop here, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Is any questions, comment?